All right. Hey, what's going on? Episode 2 of Adventurous CMO. We're super excited to be here. I am Nate Spees, and Greg Gibson is over to what looks to be my left on my screen today. We're super excited to be here, and today we're going to be talking about AI, creativity, and craft. After our first episode, we had a few people reach out, and they wanted to know what we were thinking about and seeing as it relates to AI. And it's coming up with our clients, it's coming up with our work, our team. And frankly, if you're not hearing about it, you're probably living under a rock. So we're excited to chat with you about that today. And Greg, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Excited to talk about this. Also, if you haven't seen it on your LinkedIn feed, you're probably living under a rock. So I feel like
After lead might be AI, or actually,
it might be AI generated, definitely AI related. So yeah, we're super excited. We want people to hear what we're seeing and just talk generally about how we're leveraging it at Grizzly, what we've heard from our clients, what we're seeing around, and this idea of AI creativity and craft is definitely bubbling up more and more the longer the year goes on. So we want to talk about how brands can balance innovation and authenticity while they're exploring how to leverage AI in a business. So we'll jump in. I think the biggest question is, are we in an existential crisis, Nate? How do you define this moment that we're in for creativity, for brand building? What does AI mean?
you know, it's a great question. And the honest answer, and I think anyone that's saying otherwise is probably trying to sell you something, but the honest answer is Uh, we don't totally know. We don't totally know what's going to happen, right? As it relates to if this is a crisis or if it's a moment of just significant change in business and in marketing and in the creative world. The honest answer is it's probably a little mix of all of those things, and that's totally okay. I think our perspective as an agency and as business owners and as entrepreneurs and as people that are directly impacted by a lot of the shift that's taking place is that I don't think AI has come to kill creativity. I don't think it's come to kill our jobs or the market or marketing or any of those pieces. I do think it will absolutely change many of the dynamics that have existed in the landscape and around the landscape for a really long time. But as with any major shift that exists, that happens in business, I think it's also a huge opportunity and a significant moment for people that can remain optimistic and positive and curious about what is coming and be part of really exploring and unpacking what that means for solving problems. Our business has been built for over a decade on a core belief that the ultimate thing that we do as an agency is help solve problems for the brands that we're working with. And I don't think problems are going anywhere for businesses. I think that oftentimes services providers like us, that's what we're here to do. And frankly, that's really no different for a CMO in their capacity either. They are responsible for solving problems that generally exist in the marketing ecosystem and are directly tied to organizations' business and all the other faculties that exist, regardless if they're B2B or B2C or anything in between. So I think we are in a period of change, no doubt, but one that I think we can still look at with excitement about what that will mean to really ensure we're prioritizing the right work.
For sure. Yeah, I think I would definitely say this is the biggest change since we've been building the agency. Definitely since I started working in this industry, I think probably most people would say this is, just the hugest shift we've seen in the last several decades. I do think it forces us to rethink the role of creativity because the general a march forward of the crafts that we've all been working on, the ways that we get information in front of audiences, how we all collaborate, how work is done, how we interpret data is all changing. Like the fundamental um, ways that work gets done are starting to change. And so definitely leaves a lot of opportunity, but also there's a ton of change happening, and we're forced to rethink how we're doing work together. What do you think about teams? When you think about our clients' teams, our team, how does AI change the makeup of teams or the roles that people will play? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will change the team structure dramatically. Whether that depending on how you look at it, that could be a an everything type conversation where you're like, it's all everyone's role is going to look entirely different. We're all going to be doing entirely different things. I think it's going to impact specific roles a lot faster, some faster than others. I think anything that has been process related or development related or um, uh, related to kind of the how work gets done piece of it, I think is going to shift pretty dramatically. And I don't think that that means that team members need to lose jobs or see their contribution go from whatever they're currently doing to like, hey, you're no longer employed here. I think that that's the fear for teams right now as we talk about AI and we listen to pundits talk about it and we listen to things is going, oh, um, your jobs are all every job's going to be gone, so therefore no one's going to have any work to do. I like to look at it maybe with a little bit more of an optimistic lens, and again, maybe it's a little bit pie in the sky, but my perspective is I think what it will enable is it will enable us to not necessarily get in. We won't spend as much time in the weeds on execution, on data collection, on all of the different aspects that are still entirely necessary, but I think that are going to be made a lot more efficient by way of AI. And so for teams, that means I think decision making roles, thinking roles, role being able to prioritize taste and prioritize doing strategic work. I think you'll start to see a lot more roles oriented that way, and with that will mean people that are in more doing oriented roles. It's probably the biggest opportunity they have too is start thinking about how to elevate beyond the execution into how do we think strategically about the work at the macro scale of what needs to happen. Our clients are all across the board as it relates to how they're looking at it. A lot of what, for context, a lot of the enterprise and global brands that we've been working with are looking at this through the lens of like a craft from a craft standpoint of like, how do we expand creative and the work that we're doing and how do we do that much faster by way of the speed that AI can bring. So there's this kind of speed element that I think a lot of people are thinking about. And then there's I think what has been and continues to be most fascinating for me is the strategic side of this, which is we can learn a whole lot more information a lot faster right now. And that will only advance over the next couple months, years. But like literally, it's going to continue to advance at a lightning pace. So I think that those two things are things that we're seeing and having a whole lot of conversations with brands around how do we do that better. And I think that's a question that everyone keeps asking is how do we remain innovative and curious in what AI is bringing to bring transformation to our businesses while simultaneously recognizing that like we're not at the point even now where like you push a button and you're going to get the same output that teams have been doing at the same level all the way to 100%. You may get to 70%, you may get to 80, but there's still that marker of human contribution that's going to be necessary. And I believe will continue to be necessary for a whole long time more. What about you? What are you thinking as it relates to this?
I think it really depends on the type of work. I think you're so right that kind of deeper in the funnel of thinking and creativity, there's going to be a lot of efficiency gained. I was just seeing someone talk about this tool that they're using as a plugin on top of Premiere, and they took a multi-camera podcast episode, and it basically edited the entire thing in a matter of minutes. Probably he mentioned like a 1/1000th of the effort they probably would have taken. So I think that's really the busy work. Yes, there's a level of craft in it, but we're not talking about a film.
Right.
We may get there eventually. I definitely have seen people talking about going from idea to boards to direction to generating real frames to edit with one workflow. Um, it's changing so fast. But I think where we're at now is reducing busy work, giving people more tools to express the expertise that they have, and I think that's gonna move towards continuing to find the things that only people can do, only humans can do. Um, what are what are the best ways we can use who we are, and AI will augment that. I think one question, and maybe we just riff back and forth, is what are the most awesome things we've seen come out of this time? What have you seen that you've loved and you're excited to put into practice for our clients?
Well, there's plenty of really interesting things. I think we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about the extendability of campaigns on the photography side of things, where we can use AI, working with photographers that are also recognizing what's happening and thinking about what's changing. I think it's going to bring a whole new modality to what we think about when it comes to photography, videography, et cetera, where we're doing live action shoots. We're still doing that stuff, but we're doing it in partnership with the photographers that we're working with, and also building models around how to extend and expand the work. And that excites me because I think it's a both and right now, where it's a opportunity to bring our partners in photography and in video and all these people to the table and go, hey, how do we use the tools that are being created to actually be more generative of opportunity for everybody involved? And then also, how do we bring a lot more extendability? So to your point about busy work, the amount of time sometimes from going from some sort of campaign asset to actually getting to delivery can be significant because of how much kind of post work has to happen and all of that. And we're seeing that change dramatically, which I think is a huge benefit for brands, because that is a speed thing, right? For CMOs, for marketers, being able to have concept and idea and actually get to final delivery with more efficiency will be a huge win. Again, it's still wet cement, right? We're still in this middle zone where it's not final, and we haven't come to a place. And that's going to be the tension that exists in AI right now. Is there's going to be a million tools, and you can. And I actually had a guy text me yesterday that's not in our industry and that doesn't work in marketing. That was like, "Hey, what tool should I use to do X, Y, and Z?" And I was like, "There's 50 tools that I know of, and probably 1,000 that I don't know of that could probably do that for you." So we're still in this place where every organization is going to have different levels of comfortability with it. Every business is going to have different levels. So there's like the real reality of like what I was mentioning, which is going to bring efficiency, and also which means for creatives like our teams, it's going to also bring the opportunity to do more great work because we'll be able to do it with more pace. Flip side, on a personal level, I love that my all hands teams decks have gotten way cooler as I've started using s- to build a whole heap of bear related content for our all hands. So there's the like fun side of this. I love that my 6-year old will ask me most nights, "Hey dad, how can you make this for me?" And we'll sit and prompt on one of the different tools and see what we come up with. So there's a lot of fun things that are happening too, which maybe aren't as directly related to like marketing, but it's fun to see that both sides can exist. How What about you?
You mentioned something in there that's really interesting. This idea of training, mm, a lot of how LLMs work, and how everyone is used to them working is, hey, this is trained on a certain amount of data, and then that allows me to create something or ask it something. And I think a lot of brands are experimenting right now with what can we train AI on, at least Gen AI on, um, that we own or that we have some level of control over. I think there's a lot of conversation around IP, um, and you're starting to see almost like this kind of dual creativity, right? You can think of the creativity of a creator, whether that's an influencer or a DP or a designer, an illustrator, someone who has a point of view, they might have a style, they might,
Right.
or when it comes to maybe a model, H&M just released a campaign with a bunch of digital twins, showing real models alongside the digital twin version of themselves. I think the period that we're in right now is this kind of dual creativity, real and kind of things trained on real. But I also think about the parallel between the training that we've all done on our craft and the training that the AI is doing on that craft, and how, there's an interesting reality there. I think the open space for brands is going to be in doing that responsibly, um, doing it in a way that is authentic. We all saw the explosion of Studio Ghibli open when the new OpenAI model was released, and very quickly you saw a backlash. A lot of people having fun with it, but a lot of people saying, they're killing creativity. And so I think for brands, doing it in a way that is authentic to who they are, whether you're training it on, the content that you've created, or your brand standards, or your brand strategy, and then expanding that from there, I think is a really interesting period.
I think what you said, one thing that I wanted to call out, because we mentioned it before we started this video, and it's something that I've definitely been thinking a lot about, which is, and I mentioned it already, which is AI to me isn't going to kill creativity, but there is a reality that if you are not as a brand, if your brand like foundations are not strong, and you don't have clarity of who you are, and you plug in weak strategy into, trying to leverage an LLM of whatever capacity to create on your behalf, like, you're gonna spit out more generic content than ever before, and often, like, you'll amplify a point of view that isn't clear and isn't resonant already, which from my perspective is like one of the, like, gotcha, like, hey, what's the pothole you don't want to run into right now, is thinking that you can solve all that via an LLM or through Gen AI, and then actually realizing that because you haven't done the foundational work as an organization or as a brand to really be dynamic and to be distinctive in how you show up, your positioning, your tone, your creative, all of those things can easily become high volume, and you could have a ton of it, but it could also have zero flavor and zero soul, which I think are some of the tensions that absolutely do exist right now. As how do we do both? Because it's an exciting time. There's a lot on the table to learn to do things a lot faster. I mean, we're working on projects right now, and even solving for like for creative challenges that existed exponentially faster than we could even a few months ago. At it doesn't But you can only do that if you're connecting the right dots, which again is why, if there's one thing people can continue to get better at, is how do we elevate all of our ability to be, strategic in how we bring our solutions to the table and how we solve problems.
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, what you said is super interesting. I think at an individual level, the representation of that is like, do you have a point of view? Do you have taste? That'll be the difference between you being able to make something great with all of the new AI tools that are available, and making something that's just duplicative of everything else that's out there. And ultimately, if marketing is supposed to connect with people and get brands in front of people, you have to be different. You have to rise above the noise. I think for a brand, um, there's there's a product when tons of people with great expertise get together and they build something that's unlike anything else, which is what happens when clients and agencies and, lots of people come together and create something unique. And I think that will always be the difference. it'll increasingly look different with AI, and we're still early in the AI journey, but I do think that when all brands have the same tools available, you'll still need a human to say, this is what humans love, or this is uh, what my grandma in Arkansas loves, or this is what so and so in Russia is interested in these days. And I think brands have to connect with people. And the only way you do that as a brand is have a really strong point of view on the future, and what your role in it is, and then finding unique ways to show up in front of people. I do think that there's an interesting kind of offshoot of that with the kind of uptick of AI agents, and the role that that'll play in the next several years. Um, it's really interesting to think about how that might impact collaboration, and also getting work done. We'd love to hear your thoughts on like what are you excited to use an agent for?
I mean, there's plenty of things that probably in anyone's work stream that would be made easier and more effective by having an agent that could help own and manage pieces of the process or the entirety of the process. So, from that standpoint, I think we all it's so heavily dependent on your work streams, what you work on a daily basis, what your life looks like, the things you like doing, the things you don't like doing, et cetera. And from my perspective, that's an area where, candidly, I feel like I'm probably pretty junior varsity as it relates to what agents will be able to do for my world and my work stream. But again, I think a lot of what I think about first in my world is all of the more administrative aspects of my life and the decisions that are not kind of top tier that impact our growth as an organization, that impact my growth for myself as a human, and all of those pieces. It's like I'd love to spend the majority of my time prioritizing that. I think we're in this interesting moment though, where um, the opportunity and the like novelty of that will lead to us wanting to explore that right now, but the initial pace of that probably won't actually solve for that upfront. It may solve pieces of it. It may solve for aspects of it, but I think that what we're going to run into is um, people going, can AI actually do that? Can an agent actually do that for me? And if I let it, then what? What happens down the road if all of a sudden those pieces are happening? So, from my standpoint, again, I think the innovation that will come across the board, not even just in marketing, not even just for organizations, but for humanity, is really intriguing because it will change so much of how we interact and what that looks like. I think as an individual, I don't want to lose my humanity in the process of that because, like, I wake up most days going, like, I really don't want, as much as I thought the movie was kind of funny, I didn't want idiocracy to be my life. You've heard me say that before, like, last time we were in New York, but like, I, I want to make sure that we don't lose our humanity in the process of what makes us unique and also I think what actually is the connective tissue that often makes people choose brands or people individuals choose to participate in a brand story is that like something that nuance that is generated by us in our humanity. So chemistry, orientation, experiences, all those pieces, I think, will continue to be paramount for all of us to get right in order for all the positive efficiencies to actually be worth.
Totally. I think you said the word there that's really interesting to me as it relates to AI agents or even AI, um, like extensions of AI, of ourselves with AI, is experience. I mean, if you think about what are the friction points that we have with brands, or the friction points that brands have in actually providing a consistent experience to all of their customers, customer service, a digital experience, even in our personal lives, like you said, the administrative aspects of running our lives. And I do think that there's a world where just like we can extend our creativity, brands can extend like the ideal experience. Imagine like training agents on your best customer. representatives, or being able to scale out your best salesperson, or et cetera. And it's not to mean that those folks don't have a role to play, but you actually can provide a higher level of customer service or a higher level of brand experience to all of your customers, because you have this greater ability to scale that ideal experience and won't replace being in person or having community experiences or physical experiences. But, just think about the wait times with the IRS uh, or the DMV, like, or all of those things that like make for a better human experience could possibly be impacted, really positively by AI. And I even think like the way that teams collaborate, I'd love to hear your take on this. Um, I don't want, like, hopefully we don't have to get to this like apocalyptic world where all of our agents are talking to all of our other agents and we never talk to each other. But I do think like um, if there's one area where like, I mean, we all don't perfectly communicate. I do think on teams, especially big global teams, imagine like a global brand, and each of the teams kind of has an AI agent that can collaborate with other global areas and help translate and help kind of hold information. I think that could be really powerful.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree. I think again that's where having curiosity both as an organization and as a marketer and as a human being around how these tools can enable that transformation and bring benefit to all of us. I think is the name of the game. Um, the tension. You mentioned like the DMV or government systems or all those types of things. I think the tension in some of this stuff is truly knowing like how close are we to like those types of systems actually being transformed, because again that's where I think the early adopters and the techno inspired businesses and people that have uh this kind of built into their DNA are going to say, yes, we can impact our customers a lot faster because we're dedicating resources and strategies and implementation and like truly working towards implementation. Whereas, and like the DMV can't even get like queuing totally right yet, like in person. Like how far away are we on AI being having an AI agent at the DMV? And again, that's not saying I don't want it. It's just to say I think that will be the interesting nuance and tension that exists in our world over the next, honestly, probably many years, is how quickly the wave will impact all businesses and not just kind of like siloed bits uh, of our world and of our businesses. And so that to me, that's not a bad thing as much as it's, I think for marketers and for organizations, I think that's the opportunity to go, well, where do I land on that spectrum and how can it impact my customers and what will that look like for me? And taking it back to the brand transformation work we're doing is like, and how do I do all that in a way that still is truly authentic to who we are as an organization and not just trying to like kind of jump in on trend or jump in on something that is something we all know we need, but we just don't know how we need it yet. Because I think back to,
Yeah.
again, this is not the kind of micro transformations that have happened through the internet, different things. It is much bigger than that. But the challenge remains the same, which is when we started our agency 10 plus years ago, it was before B2B organizations realized there was going to be like a huge opportunity to talk about customer benefit. And they were all still just basically running almost 100% exclusively, product marketing playbooks. And brands really showed up as like kind of, in a much more engineering oriented tone, which isn't bad, but it also meant that like you were missing connection with your customers and customer benefit. Obviously, a lot of that has changed dramatically over every industry and every sector, but this to me seems no different. Where you're going to see some parts of the landscape kind of put their head in their sand and say, "Oh, it's not for us; it's for it's for others." Whereas others are going to say, "It's definitely for us." I think it's the opportunity for people that are working in this space to go, where can we use it now? And what is our strategic kind of plan for how we can start to incorporate this in other capacities as we continue to grow? Because every business needs to be thinking about it. But not every business can probably put the same level of R&D into it being a core part of their business. But it doesn't mean you can't be thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, when you and I were talking about this episode. I think on one end, we have technology, and technology has always been a part of continued progress. I mean, going back at least to the Industrial Revolution, if not earlier. And for us, even in the last 10 years, social was pretty new. Digital was kind of midstream. The internet was even, in terms of like how we were marketing to people. And I think, um, even working in the cloud was not really a thing. We're still working with raids and things like that. So I think, technology and technology adoption has always been at the forefront of how organizations continue to move forward. You also, on the opposite side, have the real world and craft and real people and your customers and, the realities of what's what's possible today versus what's possible technically, whether or not that's real. And I think in the middle, you have a real innovation. You have a real progress. And so I think our advice to brands is always, you have to be doing both. You have to be connecting with real people. You have to be investing in craft. You have to be investing in teams, with expertise. You have to be investing in experience. And you also have to be on the edge of what's possible. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you can't. It doesn't mean you should. But you should be exploring that. And so I think in the middle is where you should spend the majority of your time, and how you should be talking to your teams about AI. What can we take from what's possible, in the future, and what's possible today, and how do we implement that? And I think I mean, that's how we stay optimistic. That's how we stay grounded. And, I think curious people with ideas, and a point of view will always be valuable, and will always be able to be creative regardless of what time we live in.
100% agree. And I think that the great brands are culture makers, right? Like that, and they are able to really show up um, with distinction, and they're not. It's not robotic, and I think that's the interesting thing about. And while they may not make culture themselves, they're involved in a culture exists and will continue to change. And I think that the interesting thing about how we think about this moment in time is that we talk a lot at Grizzly about brand being the dynamic relationship between organizations and how they come in contact with their end audiences, whoever those people might be. Um, Relationships just an interesting part of how all this is going to work, right? Because there is a reality of like, it takes effort to build relationship, and you do it in marketing across in a myriad of different ways, a myriad of different touch points, funnel, that all the different things, and it's changing. And AI will change how we reach people, but it won't change the imperative that like if you can't build relationship, it won't. None of it will matter. And frankly, in the age of AI, I actually think that relationship will become um, even more of a nice point edge, because I think that organizations that over-index, and go, "Oh, well, we built our agent or the system, and it just does it all for us, and uses data to do that." There are always gonna be moments where human and the nuance of being human seems it just is different than what a computer can, algorithmically make a decision on. And so there's this interesting point where I think that is also gonna be a huge part of, like, how do brands stay aware of that and respect enough to go, "Man, that's gonna continue to be part of it," while simultaneously going, "That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means we have to be able to recognize that, like, it's gonna be kind of a barbell-shaped thing. Like, we're gonna have to look at both sides of this and continue to really build with that in mind, and every interaction that we have either strengthens or weakens relationship." And so that's where I think as marketers and creators, it's going to continue to be so important to keep that in in the back of our minds, and especially now, like is it to the joke we made as we started this. We're living in a time where you're like, I don't know if I'm scrolling on LinkedIn or I'm somewhere else, it's like well, you don't like there's so much AI generated both content and just conversation. How do we make sure it's not just what we're doing as marketers and as creative people is not just more filler, but we actually are showing up with a point of view. We're showing up with like something that is uniquely ownable ours, and really living out that, and not just get kind of trapped in regurgitation of other people's points of view.
This is where we tell everyone that it was our digital twin recording this episode.
This has been an interesting way to do it, for sure.
For sure. Cool. Well, I think this is not the last conversation we'll be having about AI, on whether it's the two of us or with the guests. It's going to continue to come up, and really fun to talk about what we're seeing in the market right now and what we're seeing with our clients and what we're doing at Grizzly, and we'll keep it going.
Absolutely. It's a fun conversation to be had, and one that will probably take 50 episodes, not one episode to have it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely see you on episode 3, and appreciate you listening. Definitely go follow and subscribe on your podcast platforms, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and look forward to the next episode of y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.